Hey everyone, welcome to the Zone of Tech. I'm Daniel, and my voice is weird just because I have a cold, but I also have another final leaks and rumors video. This one. So in my previous video, I covered all the latest leaks and rumors for Samsung's upcoming Galaxy S6. So if you haven't seen that video, the link's in the description box down below. But the Galaxy S6 is just one of many awesome smartphones that are going to be released in 2015. Therefore, in this video, I'll be covering a phone which in 2014 won several design awards and was named by a lot of people in the tech industry as the best looking smartphone of all time. I'm obviously talking about the HTC One M8. And in this video, I'll be covering all the latest leaks and rumors for the next HTC One phone, the HTC One M9. So, enjoy the video. So, just like in my Samsung Galaxy S6 leaks and rumors video, I'll be covering the design, the display, the performance, the camera, the software, and finally the release date and the price of the upcoming HTC One M9. So starting off with the design, last year's HTC One M8 was definitely one of the best designed smartphones of all time. Full unibody metal build, dual stereo speakers on the front, this phone was truly unique. And it also performed in a uniquely way. It was fast, it was extremely fluid, and besides the camera and a few minor downsides, which I'll get to in a second, there was absolutely nothing to complain about. The HTC One M8 definitely had an amazing design, and the One M9 will be no different. Now, there have been a lot of leaks in terms of how the M9 will look like, but in the end, there are basically two very different sides to the story. The first side, or case, implies an M9 prototype which was apparently leaked by an HTC employee. And the prototype looks almost identical to last year's M8. So if we take a look at the front of the presumed M9 prototype, we can see that it's almost the same as the One M8. The only difference being that the side bezels are a bit thinner. The rest is exactly the same as before, including the top and bottom bezels which retain their size. Now, if we take a look at the back of the phone, we can see that it's completely different than the One M8, at least in terms of the camera module. We no longer get that dual camera setup, but instead we get a single larger sensor, supposedly 20 megapixel one, which I'll talk more about in a few minutes. On the sides, we can see that a volume button has been split into two separate buttons, so volume up and volume down, and we can also see that a power button has been moved to the side. The M8 had it on the top and it was really difficult to get to. Luckily, this has been fixed with the M9. And that was basically it, at least in terms of that prototype. Now the second scenario, on the other hand, implies concepts and renderings. And trust me, there have been a lot of them. Some of them look ridiculous, but some of them look really incredible. I would honestly switch to the HTC One M9 for a life, if it's going to look like any of those. But all of those concepts and renderings are fakes. That's all of them except for one. So Evan Blass, also known as EveLeaks, is one of the most trusted leakers in the world. And he showed us an image that's supposedly a press render of the HTC One M9. And as you can see, it looks completely different than from what we've seen with a prototype. We had an edge-to-edge glass on the entire front panel instead of two separate aluminum bezels like we did with the M8. We also get two sizes, so a regular M9 and an M9 Max or an M9 Ultra. And we also get a fingerprint sensor with a larger M9, along with a repositioned and redesigned boom sound speakers. So long story short, it's completely different than what we've seen with that prototype. So far you would say that a prototype is obviously the real deal because, you know, it's a prototype, and the rendering is obviously a fake one. But take a look at this. EveLeaks leaks were always spot on. He even got all the previous HTC One leaks right way before they were even released. So the chance of this being the legit M9 is extremely high. So what about a prototype then? Well, my theory on this is that HTC leaked the prototype on purpose, and it's obviously not the final version, it's just, I don't know, a simple prototype to kill some of the leaks. I believe they did this so that when they release it, we'll be like, oh cool, this is a brand new design, this is something we haven't seen in the leaks, rather than being, oh, we've already seen that. You know, like it happened with the iPhone 4, for example. But what do you think about this? Let me know in the comment section down below. Is my theory too crazy? I know. Let me know. And also, if we take a look at some of the photos of that prototype, especially the one in gold, we can see how huge the back casing is when compared to the hand holding it. And just in case you're wondering, that's a male hand, not a female hand. Which means that that's not the regular HTC One M9 model, it's probably the M9 Max or M9 Ultra. So a larger version of the M9 is definitely on its way. But who knows, maybe the back will be exactly the same like the one we've seen with that prototype, while the front being the one we've seen in the renderings. So yeah, we'll have to wait a few more weeks, and we'll see. But in the end, no matter how the HTC One M9 will look like, we only know one single thing for sure, and that is that the M9 will have one of the most premium designs ever. Moving on to section number 2, we have the display. So in terms of the display, the HTC One M8 came with a 5-inch 1080p display, and expect something similar with the M9. So in terms of the display size, expect something between 5 and 5.2 inches, most probably 5.1 1080p display, which would translate to a PPI of 432. Now, some rumors point to a 2K display, so a Quad HD display, but I highly doubt that. I think that if we are going to see a 2K display, it's going to be only on the larger M9 Ultra or M9 Max model. And in the end, a 5-inch 1080p display is already perfect. I did have the chance to compare the LG G3 to the One M8 last year, and although the G3 had a Quad HD display, I couldn't tell the difference between the two. There's no way you can see the pixels with the naked eye on any of these. And besides, a 1080p display also consumes less energy, which means that you'll essentially be getting a longer battery life with a device that only has a 1080p display compared to one which has a 2K or a Quad HD display. And even if we do get a larger, let's say 5.2 inch display, expect only the bezels to get thinner while the footprint of the device to remain the same. Because in the end, the HTC One M8 was a huge phone. It was actually the largest 5-inch smartphone on the market, mainly because of those boom sound stereo speakers, which did take a lot of space. So expect the M9 to retain the same footprint while getting only a slight bump in terms of the display size. Hopefully they'll be moving the logo outside the display frame like we've seen in EVLEAK's render, since I personally think that a logo on the front of the phone looks horrible. So either remove the logo completely or have it outside the display frame like we've seen in EVLEAK's render. So moving on to section number 3, we have the performance. So in terms of the CPU, expect to see the latest and greatest chip from Qualcomm. So the Snapdragon 810, which is a 64-bit octa-core CPU. As for the GPU, the Snapdragon 810 will come with the Adreno 430, which is apparently 30% more powerful in terms of the graphics performance when compared to the previous Adreno 420. And same as with the design, the benchmarks have also been leaked. So there was this Geekbench benchmark which showed us an unreleased HTC device codenamed OPGA10, which apparently is the codename for the upcoming HTC One M9. We can also see a Snapdragon 810, 3GB of RAM, and Android 5.0. The results were pretty impressive. 1232 for the single-core score, and 3587 for the multi-core one. But if you compare those with the Samsung Galaxy S6 benchmarks, which have also been leaked, you can see that the S6 got a way higher score, especially in the multi-core section. So the Exynos 7420 is indeed a monster. So expect to see that among with 3GB of RAM, 2840 mAh battery with quick charge technology most likely. Quick Charge 2.0 might even be the name of it. And what that Quick Charge 2.0 technology will do is that it basically lets you charge your phone from 0 to 60% in just 30 minutes. Quite impressive. Now, besides the design, the second key selling point of the HTC One M8 were the dual front stereo speakers. So expect to see an upgraded version of those boom sound speakers, maybe, just maybe, even with 5.1 Dolby surround sound support, and we might even get some under the hood improvements thanks to Bose. So the HTC One M7 featured Beats audio, the HTC One M8 featured in-house audio, and this one might feature Bose audio. Again, depending on the M9's design, the speakers might either look like the ones we got with the M8, or similar to the Nexus 9 ones. Besides this, also expect the dot view case to make an appearance again. So in case you don't know what a dot view case was, well, it was basically the coolest case ever. It had this perforated dotted texture on the front, which also had a capacitive foil, which meant that you could use your phone, or at least some features of it, with that dot case on. And thanks to those dots, you essentially had an 8-bit phone, so to say. Looked absolutely insane. Definitely my favorite device accessory ever. So expect that to make an appearance again, maybe, just maybe, even the dot view 2.0 with some extra features. Also expect the same 100GB of free Google Drive storage like we got with the HTC One M8. And finally, an improved Category 6 LTE. So in theory, Category 6 LTE lets you reach speeds, download speeds, of up to 300 megabits per second, which is basically double than any smartphone can do at the moment. So this should make the One M9 a viable handset, at least until 5G is here. So besides the category 6 LTE, also expect to see an improved Wi-Fi chip. So that should give us a faster Wi-Fi 802.11 A, B, G, N, and AC performance, as well as Bluetooth 4.1. And fun fact, this is exactly the same wireless module that you can find in a Nexus 6. Moving on to the software, expect to see the latest version of Android 5.0 Lollipop. Although this won't be stock Android, it will be a skin version of Android. And speaking of the skin, we're going to get the new Sense 7, which is apparently even thinner and even more fluid with even less bloatware than Sense 6. So expect to see that, as well as a Windows Phone 10 version of the HTC One M9, pretty much the same as we got with the HTC One M8. But don't expect to see that anytime soon. It's probably going to be released alongside Windows 10, so by the end of 2015. And finally, when you think about the HTC One M8, three things will come into your mind. The first is that incredible, unbelievable aluminum design. The second one are those amazing front-facing stereo boom sound speakers. And finally, the third one is how bad the camera was. Yeah, because the camera on the HTC One M8 was awful. So in case you don't know, the One M8 came with an ultra pixel camera on the back. In case you don't know what an ultra pixel camera is, well, it's basically HTC's way of saying, hey, we got larger pixels that let more light in. Essentially what you got with the M8 was a 4 megapixel shooter that was really good in low light. Other than that, it was horrible. My shots were always either over or underexposed, they were extremely soft, and obviously due to only a 4 megapixel sensor, zooming in and cropping was definitely out of question. So HTC is apparently going to ditch that ultra pixel technology and replace the back-facing camera, the 4 megapixel back-facing camera, with a 20.7 megapixel one made by Sony. The dual camera arrangement is also going to be removed. So the second camera that we got with the M8 was basically a depth sensor, which allowed us to do some pretty nifty tricks, such as refocus a shot after it was taken. Other than that, it was useless. So those two cameras that we had on the back of the M8 are going to be replaced by a single 20.7 megapixel camera. However, I don't expect to take full 20 megapixel shots with this. Just like on the Xperia Z series, we do have a 20 megapixel sensor, but those photos are basically cropped to save storage space. So in the end, you'll be getting a really crisp 8 megapixel shot, or 13, you can basically change that in settings. But keep in mind that cropping is essential, because otherwise you'll run out of storage pretty quickly. Now, there have been some leaked shots which were apparently taken with an HTC One M9, and all photos were 20.7 megapixels in size. One of them showing the same large camera module and back like we've seen with that prototype. So whatever the case is in terms of the design, a 20.7 megapixel camera is definitely on its way. Also expect to finally see 4K video, hopefully even 4K DCI, and 1080p at 60 frames per second, all of which were missing from the HTC One M8. There's also a strong possibility that we'll get to see OIS, or optical image stabilization, obviously on the back-facing camera. So the HTC One M7 actually had optical image stabilization, the One M8 didn't, and now apparently we're, going back to the M7, hopefully. Now, the story is a bit different with the front-facing camera. So here we have two options. Option number one is a 13 megapixel front-facing camera with autofocus, maybe, just maybe, probably not, even flash. So basically the exact same camera that we got with the HTC Desire I. So that's one possibility. Now the second possibility, which is also the most likely one, is to have a 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera on the front, so something similar like we got on the HTC Desire A26. However, if we take a look at another leak, this time an Antutu benchmark leak, we can see all the specs for the M9, including a 13 megapixel front-facing camera. So as I said before, I would put my money on a 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera on the front, but who knows, we'll see next month. And speaking of next month, that's when the HTC One M9 is going to be unveiled. So HTC sent out the invites for a March 1st event at the MWC, or the Mobile World Congress, in Barcelona. And the funny thing is that the HTC One M9 is going to be unveiled just an hour before Samsung unveils their Samsung Galaxy S6. Yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. So besides some new HTC phones, we're also expecting to see HTC's first smartwatch, which is most probably going to be unique, at least in terms of its design. So yeah, I'm actually really excited about that. But let me know in the comment section down below, what's your thought about wearables? Do you have any? If the answer is no, would you buy any? And if the answer is yes, which one? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know, because I'm curious to know. As for the storage options, expect 32GB to finally be the baseline model. So both 32 and 64GB options, with a possibility to extend that even further with a microSD card for up to 128GB of extra storage. As for the price, expect the One M9 to be priced somewhere around $700 in the US and between £550 and £600 in the UK. That's obviously going to be for the baseline 32GB model. And in case you are curious about the colors, we are going to get the same color scheme as we got with the HTC One M8. So Gunmetal Gray, Glacier Silver, and also a new Amber Gold color, all of which will make an appearance next month. So yeah, there we go. These were all the leaks and rumors I had for you for the upcoming HTC One M9. So feel free to hit the like button there if you have enjoyed this video, as well as let me know in the comment section down below what do you think about the HTC One M9? What features would you like to see in it? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm also working on some more leaks and rumors video on different devices, obviously besides the Samsung Galaxy S6, which by the way, in case you haven't seen, the link's in the description box down below. So feel free to subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing those videos, as well as turn on email notifications so that you're notified when I upload a new video. Also, full in-depth review of the HTC One M9 coming soon to my channel, obviously as soon as I get my hands on it, so somewhere around March, as well as the Samsung Galaxy S6 review. So yeah, a lot of cool, awesome reviews coming soon. But yeah, this has been it. Thank you all for watching this video. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you in my next one. Son of Tech, signing out. Cheers.